Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter number 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, and text number 37. Yatai damsi samiddo gnir Basma sat kurute arjuna Jnana agni sarva karmani Basma sat kurute tata Yata, just as damsi, firewood, samiddaha, blazing, agnihi, fire, basmasat, ashes, kurute, turns, Arjuna, O Arjuna, jnana, agnihi, the fire of knowledge, sarva karmani, all reactions to material activities, basmasat, to ashes, kurute, it turns, tata, similarly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Please repeat. As a blazing fire, turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Purport. Perfect knowledge of the self and super-self and of their relationship is compared herein to fire. This fire not only burns up all reactions to impious activities, but also all reactions to pious activities, turning them to ashes. There are many stages of reaction. Reaction in the making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. But knowledge of the constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reactions, both a priori and a posteriori, are consumed. In the Vedas, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.4.22, it is stated, Ube uhai vaisha ete taratyamrita sadva saduni. One overcomes both the pious and impious reactions of work. Almagyanatimirandasya gananjana salakaya chakshurunmanitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya manobhistam stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamayham dadati svapadantikam vandayaham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta padakamalam Shri Guru na Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesa Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everybody. My apologies to those who were expecting Mukunda Datta to be sitting here. He's not well, so he had to cancel. Yata idam sisamiddognir basmasat kurute arjuna jnanagni sarvakarmani basmasat kurute tata. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reaction to material activities. So this chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge, and we've been building through the chapter how one's activities called sacrifice culminate in transcendental knowledge. In fact, they're only perfect when they culminate in transcendental knowledge. And now this transcendental knowledge is being described. In text 34, Krishna described the process by which one gets transcendental knowledge. Tadvidi pranipatena. In order to achieve that knowledge, pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they've seen the truth. So this verse gives the process of acquiring knowledge and also indicates the qualifications to attain that knowledge. One must approach a self-realized person, surrender unto him and offer service, and inquire submissively. The knowledge in brief is described briefly in the next verse. Yad kyatva napuna moham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutan yasheshani drakshyasyatma yato mayi. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. So this Srila Prabhupada is indicating in today's purport how this relationship between the living entity and the Supreme and how to act in that relationship is actually transcendental knowledge. Text 36 further glorifies transcendental knowledge. Even if you're considered the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you'll be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So this verse is describing knowledge as if it were a boat that crosses over the ocean of miseries. We also know that the ocean of miseries can be shrunk to the size of a calf's hoof print, and then we can easily step over it. Today's verse considers this transcendental knowledge to be like a fire. In other places, devotional service itself is described as a fire. And with the same analogy given, that it can burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Yes. A verse in the story of Ajamal in the 6th canto, there is, of course, a description on the qualities of devotional service. In 6.1.15, the translation reads, "Only a rare person who has adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this by simply discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate its fog by its rays." So here the same thing is being said, that devotional service is so powerful that it can uproot the weeds, the roots of the weeds of sinful desire. In the previous verse to that, it's been described that a person who's just a religious person, or who's a pious person, who is trying to get rid of their sinful reactions by prayaschit, is like burning a fire in a bamboo forest. If you've ever grown bamboo, you will know you can burn it down completely, you can cut it down completely, but as soon as the rain comes, it will grow again. So unless one takes to devotional service, that will happen. These roots of sinful reactions are so strong that they will simply come back again. And this is the importance of transcendental knowledge. Because the root of sinful reactions comes from ignorance. And of course, transcendental knowledge will destroy ignorance. Srila Prabhupada in today's purport, there's one other verse in Bhagavatam which gives this analogy of burning sins to ashes. Bhagavatam 11:14-19, Krishna tells Uddhava, "Yatagni susamridarchihi karochi damsi basmasat yata mad vishaya bhaktir uddha vai namsi krishna saha." My dear Uddhava, devotional service in relationship with me is just like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all the fuel of sinful activity supplied to it. So this is one verse that is quoted by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that Srila Prabhupada is translated for us in Nectar of Devotion, which is said to prove that all sinful reactions can be burnt up by devotional service. Srila Prabhupada in the purport talks about the different stages of sinful life. This is first described in the Padma Puran. The reactions generally exist in 4 phases. Some are ready to produce results immediately. Some are in the form of seeds, some are unmanifested, and some are current. So the Acharyas, I think particularly Bhaktivinoda Thakur, mentions that actually because our existing manifested reactions actually are what constitute our body. Our body is constituted on the reactions of our previous activities. So we actually don't get rid of the body until this life is finished. But nevertheless, the Shastras say that the sinful reactions are burnt up. The other stages, ones that are about to fructify, which relates to the karma that we're about to experience in our life. some which are seeds and some which are unmanifested, kutastha. So the unmanifested is described like the desires in the heart that we can't get rid of until we take up the process of devotional service. The knowledge by itself is not sufficient. We actually have to take the process of devotional service, which is why after this verse, the following verse, number 38, Krishna says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat svayam yoga samsiddha kalenatmani vindati. In this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So here the significant point is this transcendental knowledge, which here is described as going to burn the reactions of sinful activities, is described as the mature fruit of all mysticism. Srila Prabhupada in this purport describes it as the mature fruit of devotional service. In first canto, second chapter of Bhagavatam, there's a verse that describes how jnana and vairagya are actually come as the side effect of bhakti. We engage in devotional service, this transcendental knowledge will come as an effect. Similarly, when we actually take to devotional service, this knowledge and vairagya, and even burning up a whole mountain full of sinful reactions, is not the purpose of devotional service. This is actually insignificant in comparison to developing love of Godhead, which is actually the real purpose of devotional service, the real purpose of chanting the holy names and of cultivating transcendental knowledge. Because if we act in our constitutional position as part and parcel of Krishna, the natural position is to love Krishna and to be in love with Krishna and to act only for his pleasure. So in text 39 of this chapter, some more qualifications for one who is eligible for this transcendental knowledge as described. Shadaval labate jnanam tat para samyatindriyaha jnanam labdva param shantin achirena jigachati. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains this supreme spiritual peace. So qualifications are there. In order to achieve transcendental knowledge, one must be dedicated. It's described as Shraddhavan, a faithful man, one who is dedicated to this knowledge. Tataparaha, attached to it. And samyatendriyaha, controlling the senses, will then achieve this transcendental knowledge very soon. So from here I wanted to have a look at some of the Srila Prabhupada's purport in the sixth canto, in the story of the life of Ajamal. Ajamal's life is special for us because Ajamal was not a perfected sage like so many of the other devotees in the Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada explains in the chapter summary that he was trained as a youth. He was trained. When he fell down, he was actually serving a spiritual master, a guru. So he was trained to worship Narayan. He was trained in studying the Vedas and following regulative principles. And the Acharyas explain that although he was trained so nicely in knowledge, he still had this seed, this bij or this kuta in his heart. So this lay dormant while he was engaged in his devotional service, trying to serve his spiritual master. He was married to a very faithful and chaste wife. The Acharyas also say that because his wife was so chaste, this also protected him from this seed in the heart. So this is the value of a chaste wife. But when he happened to see a couple engaged in illicit activities in the forest while he went out to collect firewood, then the seed sprouted and grew very quickly, and he became attached. So this can happen to any one of us unless we become firmly fixed in devotional service, as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad-Gita. So I just want to go through some of these purports. There are some nice things said about devotional service and the power of devotional service. The first one is Srila Prabhupada is quoting Bhagavad-Gita 14:26. Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti-yogena sevati sagunan samiti chaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Devotional service is so strong that if one fully surrenders to Krishna and takes to devotional service, the reactions of his sinful life immediately stop. In Bhagavad Gita 18:66, Krishna says, Sarvadaman parichaja mamekam sharanam vaja aham tvam sarvapapibhyo. I will get rid of all your sinful reactions. 6.1.12, the text reads, My dear king, this is Sukadev Goswami talking to Maharaj Parikshit before she goes into the story. This is right in the very beginning of the 6th canto. My dear king, if a diseased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food described by a physician, he is gradually cured, and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regulative principles of knowledge, he gradually progresses towards liberation from material contamination. So this, once we start this process of devotional service and following the regulative principles of knowledge, the progress becomes gradual. We have to endeavor, of course, not to commit offenses. Ajamal was especially fortunate because although he committed so many offenses, he didn't do it on the strength of the chanting of the holy name. He didn't do it knowingly, thinking that by my devotional service I will get rid of my offenses. He was so absorbed in his wife and child that he simply thought of them. But at the same time he was calling his child's name, which was Narayan. So accidentally he was calling Narayan's name. Prabhupada explains in the purports that accidentally means actually there was some remembrance in his mind because of his worshipping Narayan in his youth. So that remembrance of it there, that meant that when he was calling Narayan's name, there was actually some remembrance of Narayan. And because he wasn't doing it in order to get rid of the reactions of his sinful life, it's actually to be considered pure chanting. That one we've read. So it continues, I read 6.1.15, then the following verse says, My dear king, if a sinful person engages in the service of a bona fide devotee of the Lord, and thus learns how to dedicate his life unto the lotus feet of Krishna, he can be completely purified. So of course before this in the 6th canto, in that first chapter, Maharaj Parikshit had asked a question of Sukadeva Goswami, because at the end of the 5th canto, what he had been listening to was a description of all the hellish planets. So after the description of the hellish planets, Maharaj Parikshit was naturally compassionate on the living entities and was asking Sukadeva Goswami to explain how someone can be relieved of sinful reactions and not have to go through these hellish planets. So in the beginning, Sukadeva Goswami says, well, someone can just do prayaschit, which is why we came up with this analogy of the bamboos burning in the forest. Because this was a way of Sukadeva Goswami testing his disciple to see how serious he was. And Parikshit Maharaj immediately replied, prayaschit is useless. It's just like an elephant's bathing. An elephant takes a bath in the river and then immediately throws dirt all over himself as soon as he comes out. There must be something better. And this is why Sukadeva Goswami is now describing devotional service as being something far, far better than atonement. How a devotional service is so powerful that it immediately gets rid of the sinful reactions and purifies one. Immediately and gradually. The words are used both, because immediately, in terms of the eternity of the soul, is maybe a lifetime or so. So we think it's taking time, but actually in terms of the history of our soul, even in the material world, it's very quick. So devotional service, Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport, is necessary not to drive away an insignificant stock of sins, but to awaken our dormant love for Krishna, which I had mentioned, is also stressed in the Nectar of Devotion. 6.119 says, although not having fully realized Krishna, persons who have even once surrendered completely to his lotus feet and who have become attracted to his name, form, qualities and pastimes are completely freed of sinful reaction, for they have thus accepted a true method of atonement. Something similar is also said by Lord Ram when Vibhishan surrenders unto him. He says the same thing. If someone just once says, my Lord, I am yours, then I completely look after him. So the other thing we talked about was how this getting rid of the sins is actually an insignificant part of devotional service. So then I just wanted to go through the chapter 1 of Nectar of Devotion, which describes the characteristics of pure devotional service. So this is interesting because this removal of sinful reactions is actually the first of the 6 characteristics that are described, which is called relief from material distress. So the first 2 characteristics are described to be to do with our material life, to do with our endeavoring to take up devotional service, and as a incentive to help us take up devotional service. So relief from material distress will help us to take up the process of devotional service. And it's here that Rupa Goswami describes the 4 kinds of effects of sinful activities, the prarabdha, aprarabdha, bij and gutta. The next quality, which is also an incentive for us to take up devotional service, is that Krishna is all auspicious. So this auspiciousness means that we can gain all good qualities by taking up devotional service. Another place where this progression in the qualities of devotional service is described is in the first verse of Shikshastakam. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam. This again is about getting rid of material distress. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam. So Shreya Kairava Chandrika is about the fact that taking up devotional service, taking up the chanting of the holy name, will engage us in the service of the Lord, which is far more auspicious than just getting rid of our material miseries. And Vidya Vadu Jivanam, the fact that this chanting of the holy name will bring this transcendental knowledge. Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamritashvaram Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So the ever-increasing ocean of bliss, which gives us a taste of something for which we're always anxious, because the constitutional position of the soul is to be always engaged in Krishna's service. Satchidananda, to be eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So the next two are at a higher level of devotional service. One is happiness in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness gives happiness. Now here I'm just looking at nectar devotion, so I don't have the Sanskrit words. Happiness and the rareness of devotional service, sudurlabha. So these two are described as something that once we take up devotional service, we'll realize these qualities of happiness. Krishna also says that in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. Rajavijam Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshava Ganam Dharmyam Susukam Kartamavyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. It is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So this happiness is experienced once we take up the process of devotional service. And the rareness of devotional service. Krishna also says in the 9th chapter, out of so many millions of people, hardly one will take up transcendental pursuits. And of those, there'll be hardly one who will actually come to devotional service properly. And the last, the 5th and 6th item of these qualities of devotional service relate to the higher stages of devotion. One is the happiness of being one with the Supreme, this feeling of Ananda. And the highest one is that devotional service actually attracts Krishna himself, Sri Krishna Karshani, which means that devotional service is actually so powerful that it can attract Krishna. So I'm going to read this verse again and then ask for some comments. Yataidam se samiddhognir basmasat kurute rajana jnana agni sarvakarmani basmasat kurute tata. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reaction to material activities. So does anyone have some comments or question on today's class, please? Hare Krishna Prabhu. There's a microphone there.
The first one is about the English words used in various translations.
Yes.
So your quote is Krishna talking to Vrindavan in the 11th canto.
Yes.
And it refers to sinful reactions. And in 1866, relief from all sinful reactions.
Yes.
And the general impression is that these are bad things, sinful, negative.
Okay.
But in this particular verse and in the Bhagavad-Gita it says that it refers to both pious and impious
Yes.
activities.
Yes.
And I think for most people that would be quite a shock. They would like the idea of getting rid of the sinful, the impious ones, and they would question why on earth get rid of all my pious activities.
Yes.
So the comment really is that both pious and impious activities keep us in the material world. And so the translation of material reactions is probably a better description than just sinful reactions. But that was just a comment.
Yes.
The second was really a question.
Okay.
You mentioned Ajamil, and his wife was a chaste wife.
Yes.
Now, generally, the husband and wife work together in trying to achieve liberation. So if Ajamil achieved liberation, did his wife also achieve liberation?
Well, the description is not there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Often with these stories there is more detail in other Puranas as well. But the description is once Ajamal was freed by the Vishnu Dutas from the Yamadutas, he went to Badrikaksham ashram and engaged in, he renounced material world and engaged in devotional service there. So it doesn't mention again if he had anything to do with either his first wife, who was very chaste, or his second wife, who wasn't. It's mentioned only that he goes to Badrika ashram and completes his devotional service there.
The third comment was, you used the name Narayan, which is a name of Vishnu.
Yes.
And he used it not intentionally as a form of worship, but of course that was the import. Quite often in the material world, what we're saying with the names of God is not always respectful.
Yes.
And comes under the heading of blasphemy, which is something that we have to carefully avoid. Would you like to comment on that?
So, this is also described particularly by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in various places, including Harinam Chintamani, how there are different gradations of not chanting the holy names but gaining benefit from not deliberately chanting them. One of the examples given is even the Muslims chant haram when something terrible happens, and they're getting some benefit. Of course, anything that is not deliberate devotional service is not going to lead us to bhakti. It may lead to liberation, an accidental. Like it said that Ajamal did not get back to Godhead simply by chanting Narayan's name. He still had to go to Badrikashram and complete his devotional service before the Vishnu Dutas came and took him back to the Vaikuntha planets. So we can chant accidentally and we can chant derisively and still get a result, towards liberation, but not towards devotional service, until we actually take up with favourable devotional service. Anukulyena Krishnanushīlanam.
The last point is about most of this karma mentioned in the purport, fructifying, a priori and a posteriori. But these types of karma can be removed by particular forms of sacrifice, or punya, and that what is it's important to remove is not just those, but the habits, the impressions that have led to them in the first place.
Yeah, and that's the example of the fire in the bamboo forest. Just by these sacrifices, you can burn down the bamboo forest, but the roots remain in the ground and they will come back again. Yeah, thank you. Some other comments from someone else? Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
In today's verse, the knowledge, the fire of knowledge, knowledge about what?
Yeah, so this chapter is about transcendental knowledge. The transcendental knowledge I described when I read 35, how Krishna is claiming that all living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme, they are mine. So this transcendental knowledge, it's not just ordinary knowledge. Transcendental knowledge means us, knowledge of the soul, knowledge of the Supreme, and the relationship between them. And so that's described, it's been described through this chapter, and will be described again in some later verses how as well. So that's what this transcendental knowledge means. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for tolerating me. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai.